G'day everyone, Matt here from Mile Marker 66 again, and it's a beautiful sunny day here in Hamilton. I've got the house to myself and I think I'm going to throw down a brisket today. Now I'm going to be cooking on the brand new Octopit MultiQ, which is the new barbecue Octopit have just brought out, in addition to the offset smokers. I was very lucky as the first customer, I guess, to get one outside the prototype that was built. And this is only the third time I've fired it up, the second sort of proper cook I've had on it. So what we go through today, sort of how I'm operating it at the moment, just as I learn it, it may not be the way I always do, but I've got to set a starting point somewhere. So we'll go through that. We'll cover off a bit of a walkthrough talker of the barbecue as well, just some of the accessories you can expect to accompany it, and just some of the features of it. It is a really great bit of kit, and this is going to be going forward our competition rig. So let's go through the barbecue before we get into anything. Okay, so this is the Octopit MultiQ. It's called the MultiQ because it can function in a number of different ways. But just looking at the exterior here, this one just came in bare steel, and it's rusted a bit. And what I'll do, and what you'll see some of the other MultiQs around have already done, is go ahead and acid wash. It brings up quite a nice black sort of patina kind of finish, which looks really good. Okay, on the outside here we've got our two air inlets that just open up like this, and one on the other side there, and up the top our exhaust or air outlet that open up the same way there. A couple of temperature gauges. You've got the shelves on the side, which are pretty classic to all Octopit barbecues. These ones you can bolt off and on, but I like to have them on because it's a good place to rest things. And the other thing it has, it's got some casters down the bottom, some heavy duty casters, so you couldn't pick this up by yourself, but you can certainly maneuver it by yourself. Okay, so let's have a look inside this thing. All right, so the first thing you can see at the top there is you've got your single level grate. These are slightly bigger than the ones you normally find in the Octopits, 400 by 740 mil, I believe. So you could fit a fair amount of food on here. Okay, so underneath that we've got a baffle plate. Now you can get these baffles in a half or a whole. This is a half, you can see it's only covering half the firebox there. And these just sit on these little mounts or locators there. And if we look down the bottom here, you can see the firebox. And at the moment I have two chimneys of unlit lump just on the left hand side there. Okay, so you can see in the firebox here, it's pretty heavy duty, and you can see these little tabs here that run along the length, and they're also at the ends. And what they allow you to do is you can get a gate that'll slot in there and go across, and it'll push all your coals to one end, so you can have them underneath your baffle or however you prefer to cook. Those tabs along will obviously depend on how much fuel you're using. If you're using a lot, you might want to put your gate a bit further down. Right, the other thing we can see is our air inlets coming in underneath the firebox. The other one's hidden, it's underneath the charcoal. And you'll also see that around the outside of the firebox, you've got this lip here. And what you can do is you can lift this up, and it'll sit up on these locators here. So what you could do is you can put your grate on top, or you can put some grill grates on top, and you can do your hot and fast type cooks. So you can cook some steaks or some wings or whatever you might be doing for that sort of direct grilling, which is quite cool. One thing I will point out is that the firebox isn't super light, and it can be a bit awkward to get out. You can see these locators here. You actually need to get it on its side to lift it up. So it can be a bit awkward, but I do believe that there's a tool or some sort of jig being created to assist in pulling that out. But really that's the only way to clean any ash rather, or excess coal, is to pull that out and manually clean it. Underneath it's out of sight, but there's a little cap screw which acts as a drain or a plug. You can undo that, give it a hose out, and it'll drain out the bottom. Right, so I've just put that baffle plate back in, and you can see I've got my coals under there. And what you can do is you could use this as a reverse flow. So you could have the stack on this side open, and then the stack on the lid also open. And that way your heat is running along the bottom here, around the baffle, and then back out the top. Alternatively, you could go direct flow. You could close this, open that, and then you've got your heat source coming direct up across. Or the way that I'm going to run it today is basically I'm going to have both stacks open. Right, another feature that this barbecue has, I don't have them on, but there's some locators here and here. You can see at the other end as well, and that's if you like to hang. So if you want to hang some ribs or a tomahawk or whatever you might like to hang, you can get some bars that'll go across here, and they'll allow you to do that. Okay, so there's a bit of an overview, I guess, of the MultiQ, and you can see it's quite multifunctional, hence the name. You can do your reverse flow, your direct flow, you can cook hot and fast, you can bring the firebox up and do your grilling. So it's really an all-in-one barbecue. So what we'll do is we'll get this thing lit up and we'll get our brisket on. Okay, so what I've done there is I have poured 1 chimney of lit lump over 2 chimneys of unlit lump. And I might find out a bit later on that that's too much fuel or not enough fuel, but that's my starting point, and we'll see how we go with that. Right, we'll chuck our baffle in. Now this might seem like an incredibly obvious statement, but do make sure you're wearing some cotton gloves when you're doing this, because those coals do get very hot and your hand's not too far away from them when you're popping that in. Right, and lastly we'll put our grate on top. Okay, the way I'm going to set my vents is I'm going to open both these top vents right up. And my vents here, you can see I've just opened, I don't know, maybe not quite 10 mil. Alright, so we'll see where that settles out and what sort of temperature that we're going to be cooking at. Personally, I like to go quite hot and fast, so I'll be looking at upwards of 300, around that 325 to 350 temperature range. So you can see we're coming up in temperature a bit here. One thing I will point out is that these Teltrues I put on afterwards is an aftermarket. I guess there is a standard gauge that comes with, but I have put Teltrues on here. Okay, there's a few reasons I like to go hot and fast. The first one is just time. If I can do something in 4.5, 5 hours, to me that's a lot better than doing it in 12. The other one is the stall. If you're cooking hot and fast, you just push through the stall. It's not really an issue at all. And the other one is for competing, that I would rather have things done quickly and away resting, and it just takes away all that sort of stress and anxiety of trying to have something done at a certain time. If I know that I can just pull it out of the camera and start getting it ready for presenting or turning in. So that's sort of my school of thought behind going hot and fast on my barbecue. Just while we wait for the barbecue to come up to temperature, we'll have a look at our brisket today. This is the Jacks Creek F1 brisket. It's about 7.4 kilos, but I've trimmed it down a bit, so we're probably around that 6.5 kilo mark. I've rubbed it with some Lane's Ancho Espresso, which has that really nice brown colour there. That's a coffee rub, so it's got some really nice earthy flavours to it. And then I've put some of the Lane's brisket rub on top just to get that salty and peppery hit that I like with my beef. Okay, we've just ticked over 325, getting up towards 350 there, and that has taken roughly about 35 minutes to get up there. So I guess there's a bit of steel there you got to heat up, but 35 minutes isn't too bad. All right, there we go. She's on. She's a long old girl. So it's bang on 1:15 in the afternoon. So let's see how long this thing takes. Okay, we're exactly 1 hour in and we're sitting just below 325, which is not too bad. Happy with that. So let's have a look and see how the brisket's going. All right, we're starting to get some nice colour there. A bit dark at this end, so what I might do is rotate it. But she's looking good so far. Right, just rotated that. You can see the temperature's climbing back up again. It's probably about 118, 120 internally. The rubber's setting quite well, so I'm going to give it another 30, 40 minutes and then check it again and see if we're ready to wrap. Okay, so we're just coming up on an hour and a half. I have actually just opened this, but this thing has just been cruising at 325. I haven't touched the vents and I haven't added any fuel either, so it does sit really nice. So let's open it up and see what this brisket looks like. Okay, so she's looking pretty good there. Nice bit of moisture and colour there. And so I'll probably look at wrapping this pretty shortly. And I've got two kind of indicators that I look for when I'm wrapping. One is the colour, which as we can see is looking pretty good. The other is whether the rub's set. So if I give it a bit of a scratch, it's not really focusing too well, but that the rub's not going to come off. So I'm not looking for a certain temperature. I'm not looking to do it after a set amount of time. I'm just looking to do it on how it looks and how that rub's sitting on there, which is looking pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap that now. Okay, so we've just given that a wrap, double wrapped it in tin foil there, and I put about a cup of just some Campbell's beef stock in there. So we'll carry this on and we'll come back and check in a little bit. Okay, we're at 4:15 in the afternoon now. Brisket's been on for 3 hours. Wrapped for roughly an hour and a half of that. Okay, so we'll give the brisket its first probe, see how it's going along. There's not necessarily a specific temperature that I'm looking at to know whether it's done. It's more on feel, which is just something that that I guess you pick up over time, but it's generally going to be within that 203 to 210 Fahrenheit range, depending on the type of brisket. Some like to go a little longer, others not so much. So that's sort of what we're looking for. So we'll give it a bit of a probe and see where she's sitting now. Okay, so I've just opened that up. You can see a bit of steam coming out there and it's looking pretty good. So let's just give it a little probe. Right, it still definitely feels a bit tight. And we're sort of around that high 180s, 190s. So there's definitely some more to go. Right, we're at 4 hours in and I've just given it another probe and it's sort of around about 205, 206. It is still feeling a little touch tight, so I'm going to let it go for a little longer. But not too much longer. I'll keep a reasonably close eye. So yeah, we're at just under 210 there, so we're close, but I do think it just needs a little touch more. Okay, we've just clicked over 4 hours and 20 minutes and I've just given a little probe here and it's looking very tender. We're just over 210, which is pretty good. I'm happy with that, but it's looking very good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it off now and I'm going to rest it for a couple of hours. Okay, so like I mentioned, I'm going to give it a good long rest, probably a couple of hours at least. And the reason for that is because we haven't really given this a gentle smoke today. This has been pretty hard and fast. 4 hours 20 is pretty quick for a brisket, a whole brisket like that. So we need to get it off that high heat and give it time to sort of relax. So we'll get this off and resting and we'll slice it up in a little bit. So I'll slice up the brisket later and we'll make that part of the video. But I guess just in terms of the MultiQ side of it, that probably wraps that up. I know we didn't cover everything. We didn't really have a play around with the vents and the responsiveness and those sorts of things. But overall, really good cook. Sat steady at 325-ish for long periods of time, which is really good. I think we used 4 chimneys of lump in the end, and there's still some in there. So if I shut this down, I imagine there'll still be a little bit left as well. So fuel efficiency pretty good. Keeping in mind that we probably only filled up that basket, maybe a quarter. But overall, very happy, absolutely no regrets at all. And we're really looking forward to using this at competition, loading it up and getting some ribs and pork on there. Ribs and brisket rather. So I'm very, very keen for that. So hopefully the COVID stays away and Mania still goes ahead and we can tear into it. Okay, so that's been away resting for a couple of hours now. We've just unwrapped it. It's looking really good. So we'll give it a slice and see how she looks. You can see it's got a good little jiggle on there. And remember, we're slicing 45-degree angle to the grain. So the grain's going this way. I'm going to slice this way. So let's have a look at this slice. Don't like to go too thick. Look at that, beautiful, got that nice dangle. You can see the fibres of the meat there, give it a bit of a pull and away she comes. Tell me that's not a good brisket. It's got that beautiful brisket taste. Yeah, it's really nice. Like you can see down here when we get into the point there, you can see that fat seam, nice and juicy. The point has always got the most beautiful, beautiful tender meat. Look at that, the contrast there with the beautiful dark colour of the rub, the smoke ring, the red, and then the colour of the brisket. That's really good. All right, so there we go, a hot and fast 4 hour and 20 brisket on the new Octopit MultiQ. It's really good. I love cooking briskets hot and fast, and hopefully you got a bit of an insight too into the MultiQ and how it operates and what it's all about. So as always, if you like our content, give us a thumbs up and a subscribe. And in the meantime, I'm going to enjoy my favourite brisket snack, a toasted sandwich with brisket slices, cheese, pickles, and mustard sauce. We'll see you next time.